Beep.
So you just trying to time travel back to when you lived with Austin?
Peabody and Sherman was a pretty solid film. There are a lot of aspects of it that were actually really interesting from a storytelling perspective, so that's kind of what we'll be focusing on more in this video. As a whole though, I thought the story between Sherman and Peabody was really endearing, and I came away from the film pretty positive towards it. And I thought it was pretty funny. I like puns.
Mr. Peabody and Sherman does a really good job of making us not like the character Penny at the beginning of the movie. She's vile. It's just... ugh. So she makes conflict. She sets the events of the movie in motion, but she isn't the antagonist. She joins our gang, and then Sherman has this weird crush on her and whatnot, but that's not... I don't believe any of that. It doesn't feel natural to me when those things start happening in the film. In the end, the biggest problem with Penny is that the film isn't about her and Sherman being in a relationship together. It's about Sherman and his dad. We don't have enough time for there to be a gradual change with Penny, for us to learn and get to know and accept her as a character over a long period of time, for us to be like, oh, she's a bully, but she's got a heart of gold, and, you know, all that stuff is a misunderstanding because, you know, Peabody and Sherman's time traveling managed to kill her brother at some point in the film, and, you know, they had to apologize and work that all out. That's not what the film was about. So for me, at least, while watching the film, when I first saw Penny, I was like, okay, she's the antagonist. She's the person who's setting all of these events in motion. She's not a nice person. But then it's such a quick flip that happens very early on in the film. I was sort of flabbergasted by it, I suppose. I was always looking for the moment where Penny was going to make that flip back to always being an evil character, but she didn't.
I see where Austin and a lot of you guys are coming from with Penny, but Adam and I actually didn't walk out of the film feeling that way. It may have been some of the marketing because we suspected that there was going to be a romantic relationship. That relationship's really not that different from Helga, Pataki, and Arnold, or Cindy Vortex and Jimmy. It's just very childish, and when you're young, you kind of pick on people when you like them. I think what a lot of people got hung up on was that initial scene in the cafeteria, where Penny uses a lot of personal attacks to put Sherman down. It's put there for a reason. It's not necessarily to set the tone as to who she is and who her character is for the rest of the film, but it's there to set up two things. One, the way that the world feels about a relationship between a dog being a boy's father. And two, it sets up the end of the whole film, where Penny kind of accepts that Peabody's a great dad to Sherman. And it kind of shows this whole overall theme of accepting who you are. I think those points are kind of the reasons why Adam and I didn't really get hung up on that first cafeteria scene. If we were going to try to get the audience not to get hung up on that, we would probably just try to make her less personal and less mean in the cafeteria scene.
Peabody's death in the film is played out just long enough for us as the audience to actually believe that that's what's happening. So when Penny and Sherman go and do their alternate reality time travel fix-up to try and save the day by getting Peabody back, it winds up creating an even bigger problem than if Peabody had actually been dead, which is fine because Peabody isn't dead in the first place. So this is one of those moments of convenience in a film that feels actually pretty okay. Peabody comes back from the dead almost miraculously. That you could definitely slap a convenience label on that, and nobody could really argue otherwise. But it feels good, it feels okay, because Penny and Sherman have already created a bigger problem trying to solve that one. They've gone back in time and created this time paradoxal loop thing that's destroying the fabric of reality around them, which is a much bigger problem than just Peabody being dead. So when he does come back to life, and then now we have to solve this even bigger problem, it's sort of convenient resolution, but it's masked within a much bigger convenient conflict that's coming about. So, I don't know, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought that was a really cool and interesting part of the story.
So a really interesting kind of story thing in this movie is the black hole, because it's sort of inconsequential in the whole, like, scope of the film, but it's very specific in the scene that it's in. And it's sort of just a small kind of convenient conflict that kind of comes and goes. But its purpose in there is to really push the intensity of the argument between Peabody and Sherman in that scene. And this is really cool because, like, it doesn't have any further purpose. We don't, like, it's just, oh, now there's a black hole. And it really kind of fuels the argument and helps them get to somewhere where they understand each other. And the black hole itself doesn't feel convenient. It's just there, but it's supporting the point of that story beat.
One of the things that I thought was pretty impressive about this film was the use of... That's disarming. Was the use of dog language in the film. We all kind of understand that dog-related things in this film kind of have a negative connotation. We think it's frowned upon when Peabody bites Grunion, or when Sherman bites Penny. From the beginning, Peabody's kind of opposed to the idea of fetching something because he thinks it's beneath him. And he is a dog. And then we see Penny use kind of derogatory language about dogs in the scene, in the cafeteria scene with Sherman. You know, telling him to fetch his sandwich. It also helps us to be informed about how the world views dogs. And so over the course of the film, dog language really is kind of shaping some of the conversations that we hear. For instance, another thing that happens is Peabody uses dog commands to tell Sherman to keep his place and to listen. And he says, "Sit, Sherman, and you're just a really bad boy." So since the whole film has spent a lot of time implying that anything dog-related is bad, when everybody says, "I'm a dog" at the end, it's more impactful.
So personally, one of my favorite parts of the film was just the complexity of the story and how well it was done. As far as like the actual physical like environments and how big it was that they went through, but they still kind of kept it small. And more impressively, like how many storylines were being told and how well they were kind of intertwined, and just we spent enough time on each of them to care about them. Like there were so many stories. There was Peabody and Sherman being the main story and how they kind of love each other and he has to like accept that his dad's a dog. And then there was Sherman and Penny and Grunion and taking away Sherman from Peabody. And then there was the whole time collapsing universe, and then just the smaller one of Peabody distracting Penny's parents, and then, you know, Peabody dying, and just all these things just kept happening. And then at the end of the film, all the storylines like resolve organically and convincingly, and it was just, I was impressed. Were you impressed, John?
On another point of the complexity of the storyline, we see all of the historical events kind of lending themselves towards furthering the main plot, which is this relationship between Sherman and Peabody and this kind of acceptance that his father's a dog, and not only that, but this personal growth narrative that kind of seems to be weaved throughout the whole context of the film. So one example of that is when we go to the Trojan horse scene, where he kind of has this whole coming of age thing that's happening with him. He wants to go into battle and prove himself as a man, but really it's not even so much that he wants to prove himself as a man, that he just wants to prove that he can do things without Peabody's help. So that's kind of a neat thing too. We kind of see all these stories colliding into furthering the main plot, which is this acceptance, coming of age, growthy thingy.
So what did you guys think?
Yeah, throw us a bone. Did you like it? What about that Penny thing?
Yeah, what did you guys think about Penny? Let us know in the comments.
Like it?
Subscribe, comment.
All the above.
Comment. Yeah.
eHarmony.
The next one we're doing out of super popular demand, like everybody and their dog wants us to do this, is How to Train Your Dragon, which that'll be a fun one. We want to go pretty far in depth with it because it's a
good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. We apologize if that one takes a bit longer. This one took forever.
I don't apologize for anything.
It's really hard for us to be apart, you know. Google Plus only gets us so far. All right.
I'm going to bed. It's 3 o'clock in the morning.
It's 3 a.m. Something's there. What, just see me like totally out of frame. Oh, we were actually recording. That's good. It's a start.